Well, as we get further and further along into the second half of the year, some of the more prominent albums are starting to come out, those that we have been anticipating throughout the year. So do they live up to the hype? Are they underwhelmed? Well, let's find out. Look at You Now by the Flower Kings. So, Flower Kings, I don't feel needs too much of an introduction. The Swedish progressive rock band. Believe it or not, this is the 16th studio album since the Back in the World of Adventure, the first album. I feel like with the Flower Kings, after they put out Desolation Rose, they took this hiatus for about 6 years or so, and when they came back for Waiting for Miracles, it never really felt like the classic Flower Kings, if you know what I mean. Like the two albums that came out prior to that, Banks of Eden and Desolation Rose, saw the band going into a different direction, a little bit darker, a little bit less leaning on the big, grand epics and whatnot, and focusing in more on the shorter, the tighter, the more punchy styles of progressive rock. And I feel like, I don't know, ever since they've came back, I've been less than excited for the albums that they've put out. Waiting for Miracles, for me, was a dud. Islands was slightly better in that it was a longer album and let them kind of, stretch their legs a little bit. And By Royal Decree, the album they put out last year, was fine. That's the best and worst that I could say about it, is that it was fine. I actually don't return to By Royal Decree all that much, even though I remember enjoying it more than Islands, but I return to Islands a little bit more because it at least had flavors of what I loved about the Flower Kings still kind of found within it. So when Look at You Now was being teased and I heard a couple of their, the singles from it, didn't really do anything for me. And, having the album now for a number of weeks and listening to it, I'm feeling as though Flower Kings are kind of in the same boat that a lot of modern legacy prog bands are. Like, I'm thinking of like Dream Theater and whatnot, where they're putting out albums once every couple of years, every handful of years. And it's just more of the same. It's very safe. It's very tried and true. They're not taking any risks. They're not really developing their sound anymore. They're basically just putting out more and more of the same. And that is really what I can say about Look at You Now. And I feel as though it took everything that I didn't like about the three albums that we've had since the hiatus, and really nurtured that and distilled it. Like the biggest criticisms that I have for these three albums is that it's missing that big unifying epic, that unifying feel that Flower Kings have throughout most of their albums. That big, 15, 20, or 30-minute track that ties everything together. We have those repeated themes, those rejuvenations of items that, they tease here and bring it over here. They play with it here and then recontextualize it over here. And I just feel as though Roland in this setting is kind of left to his own demise, and on the one hand, he stripped the band quite back. Like, there's only 4 of them at the moment. With Hasse Frosberg, Roland Stolt, his brother Michael Stolt, and Mirko Dominion on drums, percussive, and keyboards. And so really it's a stripped back band, and I was kind of hoping with this little bit of a stripped back aspect to it, we could have a little bit more of it. But man, I really, really miss Jonas Ringgold's bass line. Like, Jonas was one of the heartbeats. He was one of the continuing souls of this band. And I really, I didn't really hear him all that much on the last couple of albums. So there's not much to miss when I really didn't hear him at all on By Royal Decree, even though he's credited, but I don't know. I didn't hear him all that much on that one. And clearly he's not on this one. So yeah, I'm left scratching my head. I was really hoping with this stripped down, we would have a little bit more of like a unifying sound, a unifying voice on here. And really it is Rowan's show. Like, it's his project at this point, and it's practically his own solo work. But it really does goes to show that even though Royan is such a a great musician, and he's able to construct really interesting guitar harmonies and guitar licks and solos in that, he struggles with the composition of songs. He struggles with the constructing and the craftsmanship of these longer stretches of prog music that we heard in the past. Where it goes from one passage to another passage to another passage. In the past, it would have this almost narrative flow to it. It would have this kind of rhyme or reason, but here, it just feels flat. It just kind of feels disconnected at times. And a lot of it is like all the songs are within the 5 to 4 minute mark. And these shorter pieces work well on their own, but really they beg to be surrounded by those bigger epics. And that was my biggest criticism of their past works. Now, I know that I've taken a big dump on this album, and this album isn't without complete merits. Like, the first track of Bright Beginner's Eyes is fine. You've got that big sound, that big Flower Kings styles. We have, the harmonizations with all the boys, the big soundscapes. We've got a number of instrumental passages that are pretty nice. Like, I like the instrumental passage on Dr. Rebidux, I think it is, and the Queen. Like, those instrumental passages are quite nice, and it's typical Flower Kings. It's got that symphonic rock, the big sounds. I feel as though they're still missing that special that spice, though. And you can still feel it every once in a while. Like Mother Earth, the 5th track, is really good at distilling what it was that it made me enjoy some of the smaller pieces from, like, a Paradox Hotel, in that sense of crafting these really catchy, really memorable moments, but they're really few and far between outside of the Queen and the smaller track of Day for Peace, which has Mariana Semkina from I Am the Morning on it as like this little bit of a duet. And I like that they're at least trying something a little bit different on this track. It's a little bit more intimate. It's just the two of them having this little bit of a duet that I really like. And even the title track, the longest track of Look at You Now, still, it leaves me a little bit cold, because I was expecting the big kind of motif that we heard throughout the album that's kind of dashed here and there, as a good Flower Kings motif is. I was really hoping it to be like this big thundering climax, this big kind of showstopper, and instead it's just kind of like a little bit of a whimper. It's like, yeah, here it is, that's all we have, and yeah. So, yeah, I mean, 13 tracks over an hour and 8 minutes worth of music is... I'm just lost. I'm lost. I'm very kerfuffled about this one, but I can't say I was completely disappointed seeing what has come before. I feel as though Flower Kings are just treading water at this point. I'm honestly not all that excited to see what the band has in store next, because this being the 4th album after their hiatus, and I haven't liked really any of them. I'd much rather just return to Some of No Evil or Unfold the Future for the nth number of time than returning to this again. So yeah, this one is... It would have been more of a letdown if I had higher expectations coming in, but I'm not all that, I didn't have huge expectations going in, so I wasn't all that disappointed. What I will say at the end is Look at You Now by the Flower Kings is one I would ultimately skip. And it's a little bit of a shame. It's a little bit of a shame because these were the pioneers of the retro prog movement. These were one of the first on the scene in the 90s, rejuvenizing the whole progressive rock banner. And I feel as if they're becoming a little bit of a parody of themselves. I feel like, as I mentioned, they're treading water. They don't know where to go. They're just putting out more of the same without really revolutionizing anything. What I would have loved, and what I continuously beg for, is restructuring the album. Honestly, that is the biggest thing. If they had trimmed off a little bit, if they wanted to have it as a single disc, make it just under an hour, shave off a bunch of these songs, but then amalgamate them. Create a track that's a 20-minute or a 30-minute epic that have these rise and falls, because that's what made Flower Kings Flower Kings. And I feel like with that not in place, there's nothing really for me to come back to with this. And I probably will not be revisiting this in the future, which is a shame, with a band that used to be one of my favorite bands and one that I would constantly look forward to for their new release. I'm just getting tired. I'm just getting tired with these guys. So I'm really hoping that they have some new blood in their next album. I hope that they can get some good compositions on here, some good, composers, and get Flower Kings back on top, because, this one wasn't great. So yeah, that's all I've got, unfortunately, for Look at You Now from the Flower Kings. I would recommend going back and revisiting some of their other works rather than checking this one out. If you're a Flower Kings diehard fan, you're going to listen to it regardless of what I say. But if you're looking for, an into the band, if this is your first time coming to Flower Kings, check out anything else. Unfold the Future, Adam and Eve, Paradox Hotel, Some of No Evil. Heck, even check out Banks of Eden and Desolation Rose, Those albums still slap, even though they fall victim a little bit to what plagues this album. So, there you go. Those are my thoughts of Look at You Now from Flower Kings. What did you guys think about this album? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Whatever you thought, please let me know by commenting down below. So that's all I've got for you guys today. That's all I got. So thank you all so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.